Welcome back to the Apparition Files. And for all of you watching, all six of you, are you interested in actually living in a horror movie? Well, you might get your chance. Now, the horror genre, I feel, encompasses a lot of different things. There's a lot of bleed over. You can argue that some science fiction is horror, some horror is science fiction. Just look at Frankenstein. That's basically a science fiction story. But one of the things that I think about a lot is what we're going through right now, and it seems kind of horror sci-fi. And let me explain. Now, in the cyberpunk world, especially like in Blade Runner, what the replicants, the androids, what drives them mad is their lack of humanity. They don't have a connection to the people around them because they lack memories. They don't have real deep human connections. And let me go back into the archives to tell my story. Many years ago, I've been a writer and an actor and a comedian. I've been in the industry for a very long time. Eventually, I ended up here on YouTube. But there was a girl I was speaking to. She was in her late 20s. She had already graduated college. She was a writer. And we were talking about, writing screenplays and writing scripts. And I've always been really good at writing dialogue. And we got into the discussions of, what you draw upon in your regular everyday life. We got into it because I was talking about being able to hear somebody's voice and to be able to write dialogue. That's why I base characters that I write on people that I know if they have a very interesting manner of speech and mannerisms. I'll work that in. It gives the characters life. And we were talking about how the people influence and also your own personal experiences influence. And I was explaining that I feel like you can't write about what it's like to have your heart broken unless you've had your heart broken. And she couldn't wrap her head around that. She was like, oh, that's horrible. I was intrigued. I was like, haven't you ever, a boyfriend ever broke up with you? And it turns out this young woman in her mid to late 20s had never even dated. And it's something I've run into a lot with the younger generations. They don't have a lot of deep personal relationships. Everybody's on their phone all the time. Everybody's on the internet all the time. You see it all the time with people out in family dinners and nobody's talking. Everybody's sitting there staring at their phone. People don't come home and eat dinner together and discuss their day. If they go out to restaurants together, very often they're dipping, at the very least, dipping in and out of their phones constantly. People communicate just by sharing memes. People get their information from memes. And I'm wondering if what you're seeing, the disconnect between the generations, there's always been disconnects between the generations, but it seems to be that the younger generations, millennials and younger, are having a complete inability to relate to, like me, a Gen Xer. I was born in 1969. They landed on the moon in celebration of my birth. And the older generations, the millennials and the younger generations can't communicate, can't understand each other because our relationship to other human beings is completely different. Our emotional connections to people is, for my generation and older, a lot deeper than theirs is. And it gets me thinking about something like Blade Runner. The replicants are driven mad because they don't have any memories. They haven't formed bonds with other people through those memories, through those life experiences. And I wonder if getting into, the horror side of it, like you saw in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, people appear human but aren't quite human. They're part of like a hive mind. You also see this with the Borg in Star Trek, that people are taken over by technology and they lose their humanity. I'm wondering if we're not going through a little bit of something like that right now. You have to admit, we live in basically a cyberpunk reality. We really do. We don't have replicants walking around yet, but they are working on it. We have people having deep, intimate relationships with AI. They're discussing things with AI they wouldn't tell their closest confidant, something they wouldn't even tell their therapist. The younger generations, like the millennials, the only interactions they were having was online. They were meeting people through gaming and through chats, and they would be able to go on, I think it's Omegle, to meet new people. I know I'm mispronouncing that, but hey, I am a Gen Xer. And even that limited amount of interpersonal contact they were having, even that is now being replaced. People are talking to AI. So they're not dating, they're not going to the movies with their friends, and now they're not even chatting with people online. They're chatting with AI. And to me, it seems like we're entering some sort of weird horror, sci-fi, cyberpunk, dystopian reality where people are completely losing their humanity because the complete lack of interactions with average everyday people. Because dealing with people is messy. Friends don't always tell you what you want to hear, unlike an AI. But that's the point. Your friends tell you what you don't want to hear because they're your friends. And people fall out over the simplest little thing. People fall out over jealousy and pettiness. And the millennials were able to, and younger were able to pull themselves out of those sticky situations by never really meeting IRL, as the kids say, in real life. But now they won't even be meeting through voice chat, through interaction. And I'm wondering if we're not going to end up in a world filled with sort of semi-human cyberpunk zombies, where people are just completely immersed in their own little bubble of reality and walking around completely unable to connect with the rest of humanity. To me, that would be like living in a horror movie. Let me know what you think. Do you think I'm right, wrong? Do you notice the same thing? Let me know in the comments below. Okay, I will see you next time.